This is it. Time to make our picks. Ohio State, a 7.5-point underdog against Clemson in the college football semifinal in the Sugar Bowl on Friday. 65.5 is the over-under, is the total for how many points will be scored. This is a hard one, man. Like I tried to think about this a lot. I don't think about things very deeply in my life. I just kind of blurt out random stuff. It's kind of my brand. But I really tried to think about this, and I did, guys. I just want to lay the groundwork. I sort of did what I do sometimes, which is all week talk about a game in a certain way, and then at the end come to the conclusion of, you know what? I think everything I said might be wrong, and it might be exactly the opposite of what I've been saying. So I thought I'm going to go opposite of what I thought. And then I thought, well, I don't want to go too opposite. So I went in between totally opposite and agreeing with myself of what I said the whole week. So it's just made up. Nathan, what's your pick?
I have no idea. I have no idea if I'm doing the same thing or not. I'm taking Ohio State to beat the spread but still lose this game. I'm taking Clemson 36-32. I think it'll be a fairly high scoring game. And I think these are still two pretty well-matched teams. I think the one thing that may just be a factor here is that one of these teams seems to be like clicking on all cylinders and playing at kind of its peak right now. And I think Ohio State is still probably would be a couple weeks away from really hitting that peak. And I think that makes a difference at the end of this game.
I think it is very interesting to try to figure out in the last 13 days, has Ohio State put itself in a position to get to that peak? That if they have all their coaches back, if they have most of their important guys back, if they've been able to establish a routine, and that having like a nice 12-day prep, almost all in Columbus, not this play a game, have it canceled, play a game, have it canceled. Ryan Day has COVID. Al Washington's out. Brian Hartline's out. Corey Dennis is out. Chris Olave is out. Josh Myers is out. Baron Browning is out. Tuff Borland is out. Like all this weird stuff. If they're able to just get down to business, just do football, not have that stuff hit them, and then play their peak, I almost think that's the hardest thing to figure out. Because I don't know, Nathan, as you thought about this, the idea of trying to make a prediction based on, well, are we getting the best of Ohio State or not? I think the best of Ohio State is a different prediction than if you think Ohio State's sort of going to be like this team that didn't look great in the second half against Indiana or didn't look great against Northwestern. Was that difficult for you?
A little bit. And I think actually, if I were looking at it just in terms of the last performances we've seen from these teams, I probably might have picked Clemson to beat this spread. But I do think there is something to be said for Ohio State getting kind of into a routine these last couple of weeks. We think getting all or most of those guys back that they had been missing, at least the key ones. There are still some questions, though. We don't know exactly what's going to happen at safety. There's some other important positions that I think that if you start taking multiple guys off the field, even if they're not the very best guys for Ohio State, and you go farther and farther down that depth chart, that just exposes them to what Clemson can do.
All right, so you're taking Ohio State with the points, and you're taking the over because your total is 68, and it's 65.5. Steven, what you got?
42-38, Ohio State wins this game. I came into this week looking for a reason. I thought Clemson was going to win. I was looking for every reason for that to be validated, and I don't feel like that was. And to everything that you guys just discussed there, this team is whole. I'm assuming Chris Olave is playing. They've posted a picture of him. Gene Smith has posted a picture of him. I'm assuming Baron Browning is playing. And I'm assuming at least Josh Proctor is playing, who I still think is the best safety of the group. If that is the case, I think there is maybe something to the obsession that Ohio State has had with this game, especially once you've taken away the other team that they're probably most obsessed with, and that's Michigan. And we see how they've handled that. Now, obviously, there's a talent disparity there, but I do think there is something to being overly obsessed with things the way that this Ohio State program has been with certain rivalries and certain games. The minute Urban Meyer has showed up, that it might just click. It might all finally just come together in this game in a shootout where this offense just can just put it together, even if Clemson's offense is doing the same. I just think when it comes down to it, I think Ohio State ends up just pulling this one out in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to play.
So you're definitely taking Ohio State for sure, and you're taking the over as well. You are into sort of the shootout idea of things.
Yeah.
So that's where I had the biggest trouble is I've been sort of thinking shootout, and now I've been thinking I'm not sure about a shootout. And I almost was going to pick the same scores last year just to be stupid. Just pick 29-23 again and pick a 6-point Clemson win. I was looking at some of the Football Outsiders defensive rankings, FEI rankings for how good defenses are. By those numbers, Clemson has the number 1 defense in the country. Northwestern is number 2. Indiana is number 6, and Penn State's number 25. So Ohio State's played 3 of the top 25 defenses in the country. The only top 25 defense that Clemson has played is Notre Dame, which they've played twice, and they smoked them. But they've put up points against some pretty not very good defenses. Pitt is the next highest ranked defense they've played at 31. They played a bunch of teams in the 40s and 60s and 70s in the ACC. Ohio State's the 12th ranked defense. So I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about, okay, they don't have the huge outside receivers they normally do. How good are the defenses they've really faced? And I started thinking, well, maybe they're not quite what I think they are offensively. And I started thinking about that Clemson is ranked but the number 1 defense in the country by almost every metric. And assuming that Justin Fields plays well, but he hasn't been peak Justin Fields the last time we saw him, I started to think, well, are they going to really do that? So I almost was going to pick a game in the 20s. And then I thought, well, that's too low. So I wound up at 34-28 Clemson. That's under the total. I wanted to make sure it was under the total. That's a 62 total. That's under that. I would bet the under here, but I would take Ohio State with the points. If you get peak Justin Fields, I think it's a coin flip. I think there's a slightly better chance. I mean, I think there's like a 90% chance that Trevor Lawrence plays very, very, very well. And I think there's like a 75% chance that Justin Fields plays very, very, very well. I think there's a little room for Justin to like hold the ball, make a couple iffy decisions, not be exactly sure when he should run and when he shouldn't run, and maybe just be off a little bit, even though he made a lot of good plays against Clemson a year ago. So I'm not doubting Justin Fields. I'm just not quite as there as I am with Trevor Lawrence, and that's kind of the deciding factor to me. And I just tamped down a little bit a lot of the shootout stuff that I had been thinking about during the week. So 34-28. I think that's the wussiest pick, is to pick Ohio State to lose but cover. I think that's where like a gazillion people are going to wind up. I don't know that we're going to wind up with a bunch of people picking a Clemson blowout, and I'll be curious to see how many people actually pick Ohio State. Certainly a defensible position to pick Ohio State, and I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm picking Clemson, but certainly Ohio State could win, because, again, that's what wusses say, but that's what I think. I mean, like, Nathan, they could win. Ohio State certainly could win, right?
I would not be shocked if Ohio State won this game. Again, though, you're just trying, because again, we've seen, I think, peak Clemson. I don't think we've seen peak Ohio State. Doesn't mean it isn't out there for them to attain even as early as Friday.
But even to the point, I mean, those numbers Doug just rattled off, we've seen peak Clemson against really one quality opponent. While with Ohio State, I mean, Indiana, one of the top 25 defenses in the country. They put 45 points on it. The only top 25 defenses they played so far that they didn't score a bunch of points against was Northwestern, and that was a combination of Justin trying to do too much and Ryan Day not just giving up and giving Trey Sermon the ball earlier. So, I mean, this is a different situation. Chris Olave not playing. So all of those things, all those elements are back now, and obviously Ryan Day's going to be aggressive the way he wants to be aggressive, but if we get back to seeing the Justin Fields that we even saw in the Clemson game last year, I like Ohio State's chances in this game.
Makes sense. All right. Nathan and Steven will be there covering it. I'll be covering it from my couch. Make sure you're reading cleveland.com/OSU. Thanks for tuning in on our cleveland.com Ohio State football YouTube channel for our game picks.